can be done. Our engineers, our limitless resources, our skilled mechanics and tremendous production lines impose no limits on America's growing air might. You can say it again, it can be done. But sometimes it's done with less, and it's done quickly to meet a problem or an emergency that wasn't foreseen. Like this belly tank, made by the Chinese for the Army Air Forces when every extra mile of range helped balance the pathetic odds. It's been sectionalized so that you may take a good look, see that it was done without limitless resources and bomb-free factories. With the exception of 2 metal bands and a few fittings, this belly tank was woven of bamboo, lined with paper, covered with a mud substance, and painted aluminum. Yes, it's crude. Better ones have been manufactured in our factories. But our Air Forces didn't have the better ones at the time. The boys who flew those P-40s in the early days will tell you that 60 additional gallons carried in bamboo and mud were of more use than the metal tanks in America's drafting rooms. It was a case of now, not tomorrow. And it was done. No single American theater of operation has a monopoly on initiative and genius. This is North Africa, and the spotlight is on Captain H.A. Potter, whose closest friend was killed by flak which penetrated the plastic nose of his B-26 because there wasn't quite enough armor in the nose of the plane. Captain Potter didn't wait for the processes of improvement on the production lines back home because that's inevitably slow. He decided to experiment. From a wrecked B-26, he removed the armor plate protecting the co-pilot and waist gunner, the only source of armor plate in this zone. He made a design and enlisted the help of the machine shop. Armholes were cut out in the plate. A slit was cut to provide visibility for the gunner. Even hinges were provided to make simpler the process of installation. Here it is, before installation. As more armor plate became available, more B-26s of the squadron were equipped with this improvised protection. Too late to save the life of Captain Potter's friend, yet this crude, homemade section of armor saved the life of the bombardier-navigator on his very first flight. It not only can be done, it was worth doing. Some engineers might have abandoned Stella on this English field where she crash-landed with 3 engines shot out after a mission over enemy territory. Look at this wreck. Good for nothing but salvage parts. But the men who dispatched this mobile repair unit didn't think so. And here's the record of their amazing accomplishment. While engines were ripped out and the mobile machine shop fashioned the most delicate parts, other units fashioned an emergency runway for Stella. Bulldozer, tractor, and sheep's foot roller vied with precision lathes to put her in the air again. The marker tape was laid on the runway, and Stella was ready to take off and rejoin her group. And each bomb she delivers over Fortress Europe will be witness to the fact that it can be done. Before leaving England, the Royal Air Force provides an example of simple but creative imagination. When fog conditions frequently interfered with operations at this airfield, the English spread and ignited oil around the edges of the runway, etching it effectively for returning flyers. Even the cold and damp of Adak Island hasn't extinguished the American impulse for creation. This welder's helmet was made by a metal worker from a GI helmet liner when the local supply depot had none to offer. These are men ready to make tools, to build more tools. This metal breaker, a vital piece of equipment, is Aleutian made. These boys don't sit back to wait for the supply ships. As though to prove that the South Pacific does not lag behind in this impulse, an enterprising GI of the 13th Air Force developed a hybrid puddle jumper from bits of salvage and odds and ends. An underslung job, it furnishes dashing transportation and lends a rakish note to the jungle. The things that can be done under stress by inspiration and initiative are numerous. Then there are the miracles of planning and organization. This machine shop in a South Pacific jungle is such a miracle. It was planned to outwit the long and dangerous supply lines in the opening phases of the Pacific War, when vital parts might or might not arrive. This was not just a stunt for the fabrication of a few parts, just to show it could be done. In this theater of operation, it carried the major burden of keeping them flying. From the blacksmith shop came the raw stock for the most delicate machine work or the heaviest construction work. The skill each GI brought from civilian life was exploited to the highest possible degree. From anvil to lathe to drill press, or any other precision tool necessary in the process of manufacture. And remember, this isn't Detroit or Bridgeport or Seattle, but an open hangar somewhere in New Guinea. This cadmium plating tank was made right in the field of 3/32 mild carbon steel sheets. The brass cathode was obtained from the salvaged propeller shaft of a motorboat. Switches, rheostats, and so on came from a salvaged P-39. Here is an example of finished product, the geared Sperry screwdriver. One is factory made, the other made in the field. The Air Force's model is actually an improvement. It needs only one hand to operate and also has a collar to prevent the bit from slipping off the screw. Portable equipment for the servicing of aircraft on the line was copied or newly designed in the machine shop. Hoists, boom jacks, and platforms. Sometimes regulation and sometimes pure invention, prompted by the materials at hand and the requirements of the situation. Here's a scale that weighs equipment of more than 1,000 pounds. Sacks of cement balance off the object to be weighed. And if you want to throw something else on these scales, add the heat, the malaria, the mosquitoes, and the thousands of miles from comfortable America. Ordnance men of the Army Air Forces added their example of ingenuity in the early days when limited supplies were available. Through experimentation, they discovered that by wrapping wire around their bombs, they could produce tremendous shrapnel effect along with high explosive power. By this improvisation, they could mow down everything for a radius of 50 yards. The steel rods are another variation of the same thing. An added feature is the incendiary effect from the expansion of the exploding bomb, making these fragments white hot. Another way of translating cool thought into white heat. Do you remember Stella in England? This is her brother, Galloping Gus on Guadalcanal. A cylinder head cracked as he was taking off, with this result. He's in a ditch about 5 feet deep and 10 feet wide. Removal from the ditch took a day and a half of work. The ditch was widened to accommodate a truck trailer. This was backed under the plane, and the plane jacked up until the wheels could be lowered onto the trailer bed. A A bridge was made from steel runway mats and braced with oil drums and planks. The plane was towed by a tow rod on the rear wheel connected to a tractor. These men have not only done it, they've made the operation look simple. You'll never see this washing machine offered on the easy payment plan. It's a hybrid, a cross between a Jeep motor and a gasoline drum, and it's ugly as sin. But the New Guinea housewives hanging over the back fence sigh with envy at the results. In another part of the South Pacific, GI housewives work an interesting variation on the washing machine. The putt-putt operates a discarded Jeep transmission, turning a portable hand pump that carries water to a couple of gasoline drums. Quite the country club atmosphere, isn't it? Lieutenant Colonel Unruh, in charge of a heavy bomber group in the South Pacific, achieved this feat of imagination. Yes, it's gunnery practice with a powerful stream of water. It was devised for the benefit of turret gunners who had not yet had actual combat experience. It was improvised from the spare parts of both top and belly turrets, operating exactly as if in the plane. That's a revolving scale model of a Jap Zero, moving in a pattern that simulates combat approaches. It's gunnery training that adds a dash of confidence. Thus far, you've seen the things that can be done with enterprise applied to the junk pile. But what of that all but inaccessible China, where there are no jeeps and planes to convert and strip, where gasoline can cost as much as $30 the gallon? Here's your answer: will and brawn. You'll see no bulldozers and tractors, only myriads of human ants, pulling, carrying, lifting, leveling great tracts of stubborn soil to provide the landing fields for our aircraft, showing us it can be done. Lookouts and advanced elements in the Burma jungle know that neither enemy action nor distance can ever cut them off. Their confidence in the airdroppers companies behind the lines is not misplaced. For these men, by trial and error, by tireless experiment, have elevated the parachute dropping of supplies to a science. These special woven bamboo containers are a precise compromise between minimum weight and the necessary strength to deliver supplies in good condition. And never forget the men doing the delivering, buzzing the treetops of impenetrable jungles as a matter of daily routine. This Cletrac at Dinjan, India was court-martialed. It was found guilty of uneconomical consumption of gas and oil and difficult handling in the restricted areas around planes. So it was replaced by this tug truck in the space of 2.5 weeks. A wrecked ton-and-a-half Studebaker that once traveled the Burma Road furnished the base for the new tug. For auxiliary power, the motor of a discarded Jeep was installed in the rear. Using a system of belts and pulleys, the Jeep's transmission operates an air compressor. Power is supplied through the gear shift, so the compressor may be turned on and off while the motor continues to run. An air hose stowed on the side of the tug makes the checking of air pressure and tires a simple matter. To provide 110-volt electric power, a generator was installed below the radiator. An efficient mobile unit ready to respond to calls with more alacrity than its clumsy ancestor. Watch it maneuver with ease, without tearing up the macadam strips or steel landing mats. And best of all, its replacement parts come from the salvage heap. Capable of heavy-duty hauling, it's light enough to be flown to another base in an emergency. Rest in peace, we say to the old cleat track. The 10,500-ton Liberty ship Ogden grounded on the sands of Sacramento Shoals off the East India coast. Rough seas and shallow waters balked the 26 previous rescue attempts by tugs and RAF Catalinas. This was an opportunity for a believe it or not, a ship of the air attempting the rescue of a ship of the sea. This B-24 of the India Theater was selected and prepared for the job. Skimming the masthead of the Ogden, the B-24 tries to drop a line from ship to nearby tug. Can it be done? The first pass misses. On the second pass, the rope lands squarely on the Ogden's deck. Can it trail across that expanse of water and make the tug? Can it be done? It can.